All right, so get this. We're diving into the life of someone you probably only know for one thing.
Okay.
But trust me, their story is way more fascinating than just that one thing.
All right. I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
We're talking about George Washington Carver.
Oh, okay. The peanut guy.
Yeah, the peanut guy.
Good.
But thanks to this biography you sent over, we're going to uncover a whole other side of him.
Awesome.
Kidnapping art. A deep connection with Henry Ford.
Whoa.
You ready to have your image of Carver totally flipped on its head?
Absolutely. I am always ready to learn something new. What I find fascinating is how his story intersects with such major shifts in American history.
Oh, for sure.
We're going to see how his experiences shaped not just his work, but like his entire outlook on life.
Exactly. Okay, so let's start with those early years.
Okay.
Born into slavery in Missouri during the Civil War.
Right.
Already not your average childhood.
No.
His parents were owned by Moses and Susan Carver.
Mm-hmm.
But then things take a really strange turn.
Oh, really?
He's kidnapped as an infant along with his mother.
Oh.
Tragically, the kidnappers are only able to sell his mother.
Oh, my gosh.
Moses Carver actually pays a $300 reward to get baby George back, the price of a resource at the time.
Wow. That's a detail that sends chills down my spine.
I know, right?
To think that even as a baby, he was seen as a commodity worth that kind of money.
Right.
It's a stark reminder of the cruel reality of slavery and how deeply ingrained that idea of ownership was.
It really makes you question the dynamics at play, even with the Carvers, who, after emancipation, raised George and his brother.
Right.
They seem to care for them. But the full truth of that relationship is probably lost to history.
Yeah, it's like trying to read a faded document. We get glimpses, but not the whole picture.
Exactly.
What we do know is that even as a kid, Carver was known as the plant doctor.
Talk about a sign of things to come.
It seems his affinity for the natural world was there from the very beginning.
Totally.
Yeah.
But as a teenager, he leaves Missouri heading to Kansas with the Exodusters.
Oh.
Now, for those who don't know, this was a massive migration of African Americans westward after the Civil War, seeking opportunity and escape from the South.
And for Carver, this move was likely fueled by more than just the desire for opportunity.
Yeah.
He had witnessed a lynching, a horrific experience that undoubtedly left a deep scar on him.
To witness something so brutal, I can't imagine how that would shape your worldview, especially at such a young age.
Yeah.
Yet even with that trauma, his desire to learn never wavered.
Really?
He attended several schools, faced rejection from Highland College. It's a story of perseverance in the face of some serious obstacles.
Resilience seems to be a defining characteristic of his life. Setbacks, discrimination, limited resources, none of it stopped him from pursuing his education.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a turning point, the Milhollans.
Okay.
This white family sees his talent, encourages his art. They become almost like a surrogate family for him,
Oh, wow.
which seems to have been something he deeply needed.
Yeah, their support is crucial. They saw past the prejudices of the time and nurtured his artistic abilities.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about how his art and his science were, for him, so intertwined.
Right. Makes you wonder how one fueled the other. They
Exactly.
encourage him to apply to Simpson College in Iowa.
Okay.
And get this, he's the only black student there.
Wow, that must have taken incredible courage to walk into that environment.
Right. It really highlights the constant tightrope walk he had to do navigating a society that was deeply divided.
Yeah.
Yet he thrives academically, graduating with honors, and this leads him to Iowa State.
Where he earns both a bachelor's and a master's degree in agriculture.
Wow.
Think about that for a second. A black man in the late 19th century achieving that level of education.
Incredible.
It's truly remarkable.
Iowa State seems to be where he really comes into his own. He develops close relationships with mentors who champion his work.
Oh, nice.
People like James Wilson, who later becomes the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture,
Wow.
and Louis Pamel, this renowned botanist.
These mentorships are so important.
They really are.
They provide guidance, open doors, and validate his talents in a way that the broader society often fails to do.
And his thesis at Iowa State,
Yeah.
it's about how humans can H-E-L-P nature.
Hmm.
Already you see hints of the philosophy that will guide his later work.
Interesting.
He seems genuinely happy here, but as we know, life rarely goes in a straight line.
Right, and this is where Booker T. Washington enters the picture.
Okay.
As founder of Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, Washington is on this mission to uplift the black community through education and economic empowerment.
He recognizes Carver's brilliance and recruits him to lead Tuskegee's agricultural department.
Makes sense.
On the surface, it seems like a perfect fit, but of course things are never that simple.
Oh, what happened?
There are clashes almost immediately. Carver wants to push boundaries, while the culture at Tuskegee is more focused on practicality and immediate needs.
Ah, I see.
And then there's the tension with Washington himself, who's known for being a bit controlling. Carver wants autonomy, and those two strong personalities butt heads.
It's a classic conflict vision versus practicality.
Right.
Washington's focus is on training Black farmers for the realities of sharecropping in the South, teaching them skills to survive within the system.
Right.
Carver, however, has a much broader vision, one rooted in scientific innovation and true self-sufficiency.
So while dealing with all this internal turmoil, Carver's early work at Tuskegee does focus on practical advice for Black farmers.
Like what?
Things like feeding acorns or finding new uses for sweet potatoes,
Oh, right.
stuff that could have a real impact on their daily lives.
Yeah, and that practicality is important. He understood the immediate needs of the community he served.
Yeah.
But even in these early projects, you see the seeds of his later, more groundbreaking work.
Then World War I hits and everything shifts again.
Oh, wow. How so?
Suddenly food shortages become a national crisis.
Oh, no.
And guess what? Carver's research into alternative crops and food sources is suddenly in high demand.
Oh, wow. So this is his moment to step onto the national stage.
Yes, exactly. He testifies before Congress, advocating for the use of crops like sweet potatoes and, of course, peanuts to address those wartime shortages.
And that's how the Peanut Man is born.
You got it.
But here's the irony. His fame for finding 105 ways to use the peanut actually eclipses his larger message.
I know, right? It's a great example of how a catchy soundbite can overshadow a much more complex idea.
Exactly.
Carver wasn't just about peanuts. He was advocating for self-sufficiency soil health, using what you have to create abundance.
Wow.
He was, in a way, the original sustainability guru.
And yet the public latches on to the peanut thing.
It's true. I guess it just goes to show that sometimes the simplest message is the one that sticks.
It also speaks to his ability to communicate complex scientific ideas in a way that resonated with the average person.
Totally.
The peanut became this symbol of his ingenuity, his dedication to solving real-world problems.
So we've got Carver the scientist, but there's also Carver the artist.
Oh, right.
Carver the deeply religious man.
Yeah.
We've got to explore those sides of him too, because they're just as fascinating. He never stopped creating art, painting, needlework.
Those were his outlets, his ways of expressing himself beyond the world of science. They seem to have brought him a sense of peace and balance.
And his faith played a central role in his worldview. He saw no separation between science and religion,
Interesting.
which actually sparked controversy back in the day. Remember that New York Times editorial that criticized him for relying on divine inspiration?
Yeah, that whole incident reflects the ongoing tension between science and religion, a debate that continues even today.
For sure.
But Carver held firm to his belief that his scientific discoveries were guided by something larger than himself.
And then there's this other unexpected side of him.
What's that?
His mentorships with young white men at the Blue Ridge Assembly in North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
These friendships crossing racial lines at a time when that was incredibly rare seemed to have brought him a sense of belonging, a kind of family he craved.
It's a powerful testament to the human capacity for connection, for seeing past social barriers and finding common ground.
Okay, so we've covered his early life, the ups and downs at Tuskegee, the rise of the Peanut Man, but there's so much more to his story.
We haven't even touched on the Depression, his work with polio patients, his connection to Henry Ford.
I know, right.
There's a lot more ground to cover.
We're just getting started. Stay tuned because we're about to uncover even more about this extraordinary man. As we move into the 1930s, America is facing the Great Depression.
Right.
And Carver's message of self-reliance and resourcefulness suddenly takes on a whole new urgency.
Yeah, it's incredible how his ideas, which might have seemed a bit idealistic before, now become essential for survival. This wasn't just theory anymore. It was about putting food on the table when the traditional systems were failing.
His work with finding value in things others might discard, promoting local food production, it all starts to resonate on a much deeper level.
Yeah.
People are desperate for solutions, and Carver's there offering practical, down-to-earth wisdom.
He was a true champion of making the most of what you have. And the Depression really brought that message to the forefront. People were forced to be creative, to think outside the box, and Carver's ideas provided a roadmap for doing just that.
Yeah. And in the middle of all this, he starts experimenting with peanut oil as a treatment for polio.
Really?
Now, we know that from a modern medical perspective, the science behind this was pretty shaky.
Yeah, the effectiveness of peanut oil for polio is highly debatable, but I think what's important here is the human element. People were terrified of polio. There was no known cure. And Carver, with his genuine compassion and belief in the power of nature, offered hope where there was very little.
He becomes this symbol of hope, especially for communities that had been marginalized and often ignored by the medical establishment.
Hmm.
You can imagine the trust he must have inspired, even if the treatment itself wasn't scientifically sound.
It speaks to a time when people were willing to try anything to grasp at any potential solution,
Right.
and it also highlights how far medical science has come since then.
And speaking of scientific breakthroughs, this is when he forms a close relationship with, drumroll please,
Okay.
Henry Ford.
Two titans of American innovation coming together at a pivotal moment in history. What I find so fascinating about their connection is this shared vision they had using agricultural products for industrial purposes.
Ford with his cars and Carver with his seemingly endless list of peanut-based innovations. They were both pushing boundaries, finding new ways to use readily available resources to create whole new industries.
Ford was really intrigued by soybeans.
Oh, wow.
He even built a car partly made from soy-based plastics. I can only imagine the conversations those two must have had bouncing ideas off each other, inspiring each other to push even further.
What a dynamic duo. Okay, so we've covered his incredible work.
Mm-hmm.
But what about his legacy? He dies in 1943, honored with a national monument.
Right.
But real recognition from the scientific community was slow in coming.
Mm.
What do you think that was?
That's a really intriguing question. Some argue that his work was seen as too practical, too focused on solving immediate problems to be considered serious science.
Oh, interesting.
He was a doer, not just a theorist.
Yeah.
He was about applying knowledge, making a tangible difference in people's lives.
It makes you wonder how many other brilliant minds have been overlooked or dismissed because their work didn't fit neatly into the academic boxes of the time.
It's a reminder that recognition often comes with a lag, and it's not always a reflection of true impact. Carver's story challenges us to look beyond the traditional measures of success and recognize the value of practical, applied knowledge.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Carver's life, what stands out to you as the most important takeaway for us today?
For me, it's his unwavering belief in the power of resourcefulness and innovation, especially in the face of adversity.
Yeah.
He showed us that we can find abundance in unexpected places, that we can create solutions even with limited resources.
It's that ingenuity, that refusal to be limited by circumstance that feels so relevant today.
Absolutely. Think about the challenges we're facing now: climate change, food insecurity.
Yeah.
Carver's legacy offers a powerful reminder that we can find solutions if we're willing to be creative, to think differently, and to tap into the resources we have right in front of us.
He was a true visionary ahead of his time in so many ways, and his story is an inspiration to anyone who's ever dared to challenge the status quo and make the world a better place.
His life was a testament to the power of perseverance, creativity, and a deep compassion for humanity.
Well, we've gone from peanuts to polio,
Yeah.
from art to Henry Ford.
Yeah.
What an incredible journey. But before we sign off,
I want to leave you with a question to ponder. We've seen how Carver's message adapted to different eras, wartime, the Depression. What lessons from his life resonate most strongly in our world right now?
now you've got a much richer picture, a much deeper understanding of this incredible life.
Yeah, the struggles, the triumphs.
The unexpected connections.
Yeah.
What a legacy. And you know what's so powerful about these deep dives?
That's-
Is that we uncover those hidden layers, the things you don't get from a quick internet search
Right.
or a textbook summary.
Yeah.
Carver's story is a reminder that history is made up of individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And each of those individuals had a unique journey.
It's like we've been piecing together a puzzle,
Yeah.
seeing how all these different aspects of his life fit together: the science, the art, the deep faith.
Right. Even
Yeah.
those surprising friendships that crossed racial lines.
He was a man of his time, yet he also transcended his time in so many ways.
I agree.
His story makes us confront the harsh realities of racism and inequality,
Yeah.
but it also showcases the power of the human spirit to rise above those challenges.
It's been an honor to explore his world with you.
Likewise.
And I hope this deep dive has sparked some new insights and maybe even inspired you to dig a little deeper into Carver's life yourself. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep those aha moments coming.